When we talk about love, most of us have been conditioned to expect words. We expect the declarations, the I love yous, the poetic confessions. But here's the truth that shakes people. When you're dealing with an avoidant, their love rarely comes wrapped in language. It comes wrapped in silence. Their silence is not emptiness. It is loaded. It is a battle cry. It is their confession. You see, an avoidant lives in a world where intimacy feels like danger. To get close is to risk suffocation, to risk exposure, to risk losing themselves. And yet, when they love you, they do something extraordinary. They resist their own biology, their own conditioning. They fight every instinct that tells them to run. And instead, they stay. Maybe not in the loud, expressive way you crave. Maybe not in the way Hollywood has painted love for you. But their staying power, their silent presence, is louder than the most flowery speech. Think about this for a moment. If someone who is wired to avoid closeness still chooses to remain in your orbit, do you understand what that means? It means they are rewriting their own rules. It means their nervous system is screaming, escape, but their heart is whispering, stay. And that whisper is powerful enough to override their fear. That is love at war with self-preservation, and love is winning. Now, here's where most people get it wrong. They mistake the lack of verbal affirmation for a lack of care. They say, if he doesn't say it, he doesn't mean it. But that's a shallow interpretation of human psychology. Some people speak with their mouths. Avoidants speak with their behavior. And if you don't learn how to read the language of action, you'll miss the entire story. Picture this. They don't tell you they miss you, but they show up anyway. They don't say they need you, but they sit in the same room just to be near you. They don't tell you you're important, but they protect your peace. They accommodate your needs in subtle ways. They bend their own solitude to make space for you. That silence, that quiet presence, is an act of love. It's not empty, it's loaded with meaning. But here's the challenge: silence is uncomfortable for most of us. We crave reassurance in words. We want certainty in language. And when we don't hear it, we panic. We assume absence. But what if the silence isn't absence? What if the silence is presence? What if the silence is their loudest confession that they are here, battling their deepest fear just to love you? You've got to understand the psychology here. Avoidants learned early on that closeness equals danger. They adapted by retreating into silence, into walls, into avoidance. So for them, silence is not neglect. It is the safest way they know to stay connected without drowning. When they stay in silence, it's not because they don't feel love. It's because silence is their way of not running. Their silence is their compromise. It's their way of saying, this is uncomfortable, but I'd rather be uncomfortable with you than safe without you. Now, let me push you deeper. Silence, in this context, is not passive. It is resistance. It is the resistance of every instinct to disappear. And if you pay attention, silence can feel louder than words, because words can be cheap, words can be manipulative, words can be empty. But presence, quiet, steady, consistent presence that cannot be faked, that is real. Think about how powerful this is. If an avoidant sits with you in silence, they are offering you the most valuable thing they own, their presence. They are handing you their discomfort and saying, I will bear this for you. That is love. Not loud, not romanticized, but raw, unrefined, and deeply real. So don't make the mistake of judging love by the volume of words. Judge it by the weight of actions. Judge it by the willingness to stay when leaving would be easier. Judge it by the quiet confessions that don't come through lips, but through consistency, through space shared, through the refusal to let fear win. And here's the truth. If you can learn to recognize love in silence, you will never again feel unloved simply because someone doesn't articulate it the way you expect. You will start to see that real love is not always shouted. Sometimes it is whispered. Sometimes it is hidden in plain sight. And sometimes, with avoidance, silence is not the absence of love, it is the evidence of it. So I'll leave you with this: stop asking, Why doesn't he say it? And start asking, why does he stay? Because in that staying, in that quiet defiance of his own fear, is the loudest "I love you" you will ever hear. One of the most misunderstood behaviors of avoidance is their habit of pulling away. People take it personally. They see distance as rejection, silence as abandonment, withdrawal as indifference. And it's easy to think that way because society has trained us to equate love with constant closeness, constant communication, constant reassurance. But with avoidance, the pattern looks different. It's not linear, it's cyclical. They retreat, they come back. They pull away, they circle back in. And it is in that circling back where you find the undeniable proof of attachment. Here's what you need to understand. Distance, for an avoidant, is not always about you. It's about their own nervous system. When emotions get too intense, when vulnerability feels suffocating, their instinct is to create space. That space is their way of surviving. It's not punishment. It's not rejection. It's regulation. It's their defense mechanism against the terror of being consumed. Now, this is where most people misinterpret the story. They only see the exit, not the return. They only notice the pullback, not the comeback. They say, he left. He distanced himself. He must not care. But the real sign to watch for isn't that they left. It's that they came back. Because leaving is easy for an avoidant. Disappearing is their comfort zone. But returning, that is monumental. Returning means their heart overruled their fear. It means they are tethered to you, whether they like it or not. Think about this. If someone is hardwired to run, but they choose to turn around and re-enter your life, what does that say? It says attachment is stronger than avoidance. It says their bond with you has gravity. They may orbit far, but the pull back to you is inevitable. And that pull is love's signature written in their language. But let's dig deeper. Why do avoidants circle back? Because distance isn't always about escape. It's about recalibration. They pull away to breathe, to feel safe, to silence the alarms going off inside of them. But once they stabilize, once the panic quiets down, something deeper rises up, the need for connection. That longing for you, that attachment, and despite every instinct to stay safe in solitude, they return to the very place that triggered them. That's not weakness. That's courage. That's love disguised as contradiction. Now, some of you may think, but why can't they just stay? Why can't they just love without the push and pull? And that's a fair question. But remember, avoidants are not broken. They are adaptive. They learn to protect themselves from intimacy because somewhere in their story, intimacy felt dangerous. So when they come back after distance, they are telling you something profound. I'm willing to walk into the very thing I fear because you matter more than my comfort zone. You see, love is not proven in perfection. It's proven in contradiction. It's proven in the tension between fear and longing. And when an avoidant circles back, what you are witnessing is the triumph of love over fear, connection over avoidance, courage over instinct. That is powerful. But here's the critical insight. You must learn to read the return as loudly as you read the retreat. Because if all you ever notice is the distance, you will miss the significance of the comeback. The retreat tells you about their fear. The return tells you about their love. One without the other is incomplete. And there's something else. When an avoidant returns, they are showing you that your bond has weight. They may not articulate it. They may not declare it. But their behavior reveals it. They could vanish and stay gone, but they don't. They come back. That coming back is attachment in its purest form. It's not the Hollywood script of love. It's not flowers and constant texts. It's raw. It's real. It's love that had to fight through fear just to stand in front of you again. So don't dismiss the distance. Don't panic when they pull away. Watch what happens after. Because the truest measure of an avoidant's love isn't in the closeness they give when things are easy. It's in their choice to return when every instinct told them to disappear forever. And I'll tell you this, if you can learn to see the comeback for what it really is, you will never again feel abandoned by temporary distance. Instead, you will recognize it for what it is, a pause, not an ending, a recalibration, not a rejection. And the comeback, that silent orbit back into your life, will speak louder than any words they could ever say. So the next time you feel their distance, don't just ask, why did they leave? Ask, why did they return? Because in that return lies the undeniable truth. Fear may pull them away, but love always pulls them back. When you look at an avoidant, you'll notice something fascinating. They rarely go out of their way to involve themselves in other people's lives. Their instinct is to remain detached, to stay on the edges, to avoid responsibility for someone else's emotions. They guard their independence like it's oxygen. But here's the paradox. When an avoidant truly loves you, that independence starts to bend, and the way it bends is through protectiveness. Think about it. For someone who normally says, I need my space, I need my freedom, to suddenly become invested in your safety, in your peace, in your well-being, that is not a small thing. That's massive, because protectiveness requires emotional investment. It requires care. It requires them to put your needs above their comfort. And avoidants don't do that unless something profound has shifted inside of them. Now, protectiveness might not always look like a grand gesture. It's not always about charging in like a hero. Often, it's subtle, almost hidden. They'll check if you got home safe. They'll warn you about a situation that feels off. They'll step into a conversation when they sense someone disrespecting you. They won't necessarily tell you why they're doing it, but their actions make the message clear. Your well-being matters to me more than my need to detach. This is critical because protectiveness is, in essence, possession without words. It's the avoidance way of saying, you belong to me, not in a controlling sense, but in a sacred sense. I feel responsible for you. And responsibility is something avoidants usually run from. They avoid entanglement. They avoid obligation. They avoid the weight of being tied to another person. But when love takes root, they begin to carry that weight willingly. That shift from resistance to responsibility is love's fingerprint. Here's the deeper psychology. Protectiveness comes from attachment. You don't guard what you don't value. You don't shield what you don't fear losing. And for the avoidant, the act of guarding you, of watching out for you, is their unconscious confession, I cannot lose you. I am tethered to you. You are mine in a way I cannot explain. But here's the irony. They may never actually say those words. They may never look you in the eyes and declare, I will protect you because I love you. That's not their language. Instead, they'll show it through action. They'll step in when you least expect it. They'll stand between you and chaos. They'll quietly sacrifice their comfort so that you can feel safe. Their protectiveness is silent, but it's deafening if you know how to read it. Most people miss this because they're looking for verbal reassurance. They want the romantic declarations. They want the soft words. And when they don't hear them, they assume love is missing. But what if the love is there, just speaking a different language? What if the protectiveness you're witnessing is louder than 1,000? I love yous. And here's something you need to realize. Protectiveness requires vulnerability. To protect you, they have to step out of themselves. They have to risk involvement. They have to risk responsibility. And for someone who has spent a lifetime avoiding entanglement, that is monumental. Their protectiveness exposes their heart in ways their words never could. It reveals where their loyalty lies. It reveals the hidden truth they will not speak, that you matter more than their fear of closeness. Now, let me take you even deeper. Protectiveness is not only about keeping you safe physically, it's about safeguarding your spirit. An avoidant who loves you will sometimes hold back their own impulses because they know it might hurt you. They'll avoid saying things in anger. They'll change behaviors that would disrupt your peace. They'll sacrifice pieces of their comfort zone to make sure you feel secure. They may not frame it as protectiveness, But that's what it is, a silent shield they place over your well-being. And I'll tell you something powerful. When you see that in them, you are seeing their love in its rawest form. Because an avoidant doesn't just hand that out. They don't casually protect anyone. They reserve that side of themselves for the person who has pierced their defenses. If they are protective of you, it's because they've already let you into the most sacred, guarded part of their life. So don't underestimate those subtle moments. Don't dismiss the quiet ways they shield you, because in those moments, they're revealing the part of themselves they've spent a lifetime hiding. Their protectiveness is not just instinct. It is love speaking through action. It is their heart saying, "You are mine to guard, even if I don't say it out loud." And here's what I want you to take away. Love isn't always about what someone says. It's about what they're willing to do. And when an avoidant is willing to break their own patterns, when they're willing to carry responsibility they once avoided, when they're willing to protect you at the cost of their comfort, that is love in action. That is their truth unveiled. So the next time you see their protectiveness, don't just brush it off as habit. Recognize it for what it is, their heart, unspoken but undeniable, saying, "I love you enough to guard what I fear losing." If you really want to know whether an avoidant loves you, stop waiting for the words and start watching for the cracks in their armor. Avoidants are masters of hiding. They don't just build walls, they build fortresses. They guard their inner world with an intensity that can feel impenetrable. To most people, they reveal nothing, no weakness, no fears, no emotional nakedness. But when they love you, something extraordinary happens. They begin to give you what they've denied the world, their vulnerability. Now, let me be very clear, this doesn't happen quickly. An avoidant doesn't suddenly wake up one morning and decide, "I'm going to let someone all the way in." No, for them, vulnerability is terrifying. It feels like surrender. It feels like handing someone the power to hurt them in the deepest possible way. And yet, when they love, they can't help but begin to crack open. That's how you know it's real, because their love overrides their terror. Here's what you need to understand. Vulnerability is not just sharing a story. It's not just admitting a fear. For an avoidant, vulnerability is exposure. It's dismantling the very defense system that has kept them safe their entire lives. It's standing unguarded in a place where their heart is visible. And that act, that willingness to let you see what they don't let anyone else see, is the ultimate confession of love. Think about it. If they tell you about their past, their pain, their fears, do you realize the magnitude of that moment? They don't do that with others. They'd rather hide behind silence, behind sarcasm, behind distance. But with you, if they start to reveal the shadows of who they are, it's because you've earned a position no one else has. You are standing in the one place they swore they'd never allow anyone to enter. This is the paradox of avoidant love. They fear intimacy, and yet love compels them toward it. It's not smooth. It's not graceful. It's messy. They'll reveal pieces slowly, cautiously. They'll test whether you can hold it without judgment. They'll watch to see if you use their vulnerability against them. And if you prove safe, if you hold that space with strength and patience, they will open more. And every time they do, what they're saying, without saying it, is, "I trust you more than I trust my own defenses." Now, let's dig deeper. Why is vulnerability so significant in this context? Because vulnerability is the currency of intimacy. Anyone can give you attention. Anyone can give you words. But very few will give you access to their unguarded self. When an avoidant hands you that key, they are risking everything. They are essentially saying, "Here is the part of me that could destroy me if mishandled, but I'm giving it to you." That's not weakness. That's ultimate strength. Because love, at its core, is the courage to risk being hurt in order to be truly seen. And I'll tell you something else. When an avoidant gives you vulnerability, it may not look dramatic. It might be as simple as them admitting, I don't know what I'm doing, or sharing a story from their childhood they never told anyone. It might be them breaking down in front of you when they'd normally hold it all together. It might be them apologizing when pride has always been their shield. These moments may seem small, but they are monumental. They are love in its rawest, most unrefined form. But here's the danger. You can miss it if you're looking for love in the wrong language. If you're expecting constant verbal reassurance, you'll overlook the quiet moments where their walls come down.